Political law attorney at Sandler Reef, Joe Birkenstock. Joe, as we are seeing the prospect of an insider trading or market manipulation scandal kind of surging into the national spotlight here, and this comes as the result of a high volume of shares being traded just minutes before Donald Trump actually made his announcement pausing these 90-day tariffs, I'm curious what the financial disclosure requirements for federal officials, whether it's somebody in the executive branch or folks in Congress, what they actually are.
Sure, sure. Great question, Brian. So there was a law passed a little over 10 years ago called the Stock Act, right, that some people are familiar with. That actually stands for the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, which was passed as a result of a similar scandal about a decade ago about public officials making money on the information that they have because of their nature, their job as a public official. So the Stock Act effectively adds to some disclosure requirements that were passed in the 70s so that now there is both a periodic transaction report that gets filed roughly on a monthly basis, and then also still the annual reports that are filed by federal public officials to disclose a more full picture of what they own and how they trade. So the way the transactions show up on these two reports is interesting, and I think there's going to be some information to be learned in course of comparing these reports over time.
Joe, are we going to be able to find out what day, what minute these stocks were actually traded at?
Great question. Ironically, yes, we will know what day. No, we will not know what time. These two versions of the reports that I described, the periodic transaction report doesn't even necessarily cover all of the instruments that might have been relevant here, right? You don't have to disclose, for example, transactions in ETFs on a periodic transaction report, even though they do show up on the annual report. The annual report will show the day in which somebody might have traded in a particular security, but it doesn't show what time. So we won't know whether it was right before or right after an event like the announcement on the tariffs.
And so when you're in a situation like this where, you have the prospect of an insider trading scandal, isn't the whole ballgame here knowing whether they traded before an announcement was made or after? And so how do these investigations usually pan out? Do you have to go to the SEC, for example?
Generally, yes, it's the SEC that really drives, and their approach utilizes a lot of documents, obviously, that aren't public. Specifically, the trade confirmations themselves, when you buy or sell a security, the broker will send a trade confirmation that shows to the second exactly when that transaction took place. What that obviously can't show, though, is why did you make that trade? It'll show what you bought, sold, and when, and for what price. But the hard part around insider trading for public officials in particular is you have to know why. You have to know what was the basis on which they might have made that decision. And for a lot of reasons, one being the speech and debate clause, another being the co-equal nature of the branches, it's actually pretty difficult to do investigations through